Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining PMOPA for a webinar to get to know the Piper M700 Fury, which is the latest PA-46 variant introduced by Piper Aircraft earlier this year. I'm excited to have with us today Dan Lewis, who's the Director of Global Sales and Product Marketing for Piper, as well as Alexander Smith, who's responsible for customer engineering for the PT642A and the 52. And we also have Corey Williams, who is involved in global sales and strategy with a focus on general aviation for the ESP products with the PT6 line of engines. So thank you all very much for attending today. Encourage you to type questions in the Q&A portal in your screen as we go throughout the webinar. And then towards the end, we'll have some time for questions, which we can direct to Dan, Alexander, or Corey. Thank you again for joining us. And Dan, appreciate if you're taking time. Same for you, Alexander and Corey. And I'll turn it over to you, Dan, for your presentation.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for who is attending and for the opportunity to kind of go over some of the stuff that we've done on some regional bases, and as well as in some of the public eye on the new M700 Fury aircraft at Piper Aircraft. So again, as was mentioned, I'm going to do a product overview. I've got a lot of material to cover, but I'm going to do it fairly quickly. So if I go too fast, raise a hand or send a note to Mike, and we'll slow it down a little bit for you. So as part of the, if I can get this to advance, there we go. Basically, the changes from our M600 to the new M700 Fury. This is our new class of aviation where we're trying to go bigger, broader, faster, whatever. And then this first phase of this new series that we're calling the M-Class series, we're into the naming again. So the Fury, the basic changes we're going to go over here in a minute. The key change, of course, is the Pratt Whitney engine from the Dash 42 to the 52. Overall dimensions are the same. However, if you look at a POH and compare an M600 to an M700, there are some slight changes in the wingspan noted. And this is because we just, when we recertified this aircraft airframe, the actual airframe didn't change, but our ability to measure it more accurately did. So you may see some changes in the actual POH on this, but rest assured it's the exact same size wing, tail, fuselage, and so forth. I just wanted to go over real quickly for some of those that may be attending internationally. We are in the process of all of the aircraft certifications where we have current orders on the books. We are very close, I think, to our TCCA Canada type certificate. Not holding my breath yet, as any bureaucratic government type agency is, but this is the projections, and when we need them by. We're looking most of these late third quarter, potentially this second quarter in some cases, but the majority will be the second half of the year to correspond with the order book that we have with our regional dealers in that area. I'm not going to talk much about the power plant and electrical just because we have Pratt Whitney on board and I don't want to take their thunder or their time, but we'll go over real quickly. Went from 600 to 700 shaft horsepower. We went from the PT6 42 to the 52. All of the current production is a 5-bladed propeller versus what we've had, the metal 4-blade in the past. And then you could upgrade to the 5-blade. We just certified it with a 5-blade. There isn't really a current STC or plan at this point to go back to a 4-blade, but it could always be in discussion. Starter generator and battery have all been increased in power and support. You'll note if you get in a 700 versus a 600, it spins up a lot faster, and the starting power generates it to be a lot cooler. So from 175 amp, or from the 145 amp to the 175 amp is the big change there. We also increased our plenum gaps to be a little tighter, so the airflow and pressure inside the engine compartment is a lot smoother, more efficient for the airflow. On the electrical system, of course, like I mentioned, we've updated the battery, but we've also done a battery maintenance charger port for the new 53 amp hour battery. So you can actually have a charging port now capable for your battery chargers. This battery also was a 38-hour amp battery. It's now a 53 ampage amperage for the hours. So this is the bigger battery that you could upgrade to in the past. Now it's standard. We also have with the new software and sensor capabilities of the Garmin G3000 is a sensor. So with the Pratt Whitney sensor that you would see if you were to open up the oil door or up the Callan, you can see these pictures I took of what that looks like. And so it has a bunch of wires that connect to the end of that sensor. This is a dipstick that when you go to check it, you have to press down on it, turn it sideways, pull the dipstick out and look at it that way. To make sure it's seated according to the POH in practice, you have to push it down, just straight down with a little pressure, and it'll click into place. You'll hear a click, and the green lines that you see on the screen there must match for it to be properly seated. In addition, so before every flight, you'll get in the cockpit, and if you have a CAS message that says oil level low, there's a float switch inside the dipstick compartment area that is basically telling you it's about 3 quarts. You would need to add oil for your mission, and that sensor comes on based on a maximum mission. So if it's a 4.5-hour flight per se, you would obviously need to recognize this CAS message before you start the engine. If you know it's a short mission and maybe you just need to go to your maintenance facility that's less than an hour away, you could effectively ignore that advisory white CAS message. And when you start the engine, it will then go to a cautionary CAS message that turns yellow. And this yellow will not be able to clear off. It's now set in stone. You have an issue with your low level oil sensor. And you probably could do a complete one mission if this is the first time you did it. Not advisable. You probably want to get to your nearest airport and add some oil. But it's not going to show you up a screen like you're down 2 quarts, 1 quart, or half a quart. This message is typically coming on at about 3 quarts low, so you would need to fill it up. All right. One of the other additions we have that you'll see in the POH, removal before flight and after flight, replace, is this little tag. It's a red tag. It goes right into the nose steering column. So you'll see it with the 2 red tabs right above the nose steering wheel. This is for towing purposes. So you put it in there. If someone tugs your airplane and they oversteer it, one of these little red tabs on the corner edges will actually catch and break. It's a super sensitive material, and it's designed to prevent damage to the steering horn rather than catch it after the fact. So if it exceeds those red lines for a towing person, it'll have broken. You'll catch that before the flight and inspect your steering horn. You might run through a bunch of those. They are easy to break. I've stepped on them and it snaps them really quickly. But it comes with one with every aircraft. Use according to the POH for your towing capacity or your towing limits. One of the other changes we made to the new aircraft was we added a gurney flap or an L-shaped strip that goes right on the tail of the rudder trim. So you can see in the picture, I've kind of outlined it, but unless you walk right up to it and probably feel it with your hand, you wouldn't notice it. What this does is it enables the trim tab to be a little bit more effective in slow flight, a little more directional stability given to you. I've noticed it a little bit, especially on landings. It's just a little bit more stable, not as mushy. The big other enhancements that you'll recognize, and some of this bleeds into the 600 world and 350 world currently, is the new software enhancements, mainly designed for the G3000. One of the things that we've had a complaint about, and I complain about it all the time when I fly the 600, was that you were getting anytime you brought the foot-pound torques back to 420, you'd get the check gear message, which is it's a nuisance message, especially when you're between 400 and 800 feet and you get that, it's just kind of an annoyance, especially for passengers who don't know what that means. So we've adjusted it in the software, so now you don't see that. If you're up at altitude and you're doing some slow flight or training or other things, you're not going to have that check here message. Or if you have to slow down and you just get your torque below 420, you normally would get that message. Now, above 800 feet, you would not get that message. So it's only going to activate in the landing phases of flight, or right after takeoff if you do something wrong there. But that's important to have as a guidance. So that nuisance has gone away, and that's also on the 600 and the 350. Some of the new gauges that you'll see, the engine gauges, if you look at the pitch trim and the yaw trim, the yaw trim looks to be offset to the left. What they did is because of the new travel, the new torque on this more powerful engine, it's just depicted that it looks left of center. It's not really. You still have torque factors where you have to add right rudder to take off. This is just where the setting depicts itself on the software screen. So like on the others, if you're using auto throttle or you're trying to do a takeoff, it will chime at you if you're not in the green boxes. You'll note too that the boxes for the green are a little bit bigger. You have the capability of setting it on the front end of that window or the back end of that green box, depending on how your weight and balance are, to help in your takeoff, rollout, and initial liftoff. Some of the other enhancements that we've added to the G3000 are these synoptics pages. So you have de-ice, electrical, landing gear, engine, fuel, aircraft systems. All of this is found in your homepage systems folder and utilities folders that we'll go over just a little bit today. But these are just some of the examples. If the boots are running and certain things are turned on or failed, you can see it'll be depicted on this screen. Some people fly with the screens on. You still get the normal messages on your screens when things are activated, like the 3 green lights for takeoff or gear up and gear down. But you also get the landing gear synoptics page, which gives you a more visual bird's eye view of the aircraft, what's working and what's not. Same with your electrical. One of the other things on aircraft systems, on the far left one, you'll see that's where your pilot oxygen tank is there and your cabin door close messages are. You can't turn around behind you and look at the gauge on the oxygen mask. It's no longer there. So that visual tactile gauge for your oxygen is gone. You will only see it under the synoptics page in systems. One of the other features for all 3 models is the weight and balance page. So as you go through your preliminary check prior to takeoff, and you're loading up your pilot, co-pilot, and other passengers and location arms in the system, it'll automatically calculate your weight and balance envelope on the left side. So that's very good. Double check that your basic empty weight and zero fuel weights look accurate based on your POH. Each aircraft's a little bit different depending on the equipment installed, but it's been a nice system to have. You can actually show passengers, family members that don't want to move out of that aft seat and get into the rear facing seat for takeoff, that until they do, you're out of the envelope. So this is quite helpful. Now I can get my mouse to the right place. There we go. Some of the other things we've added is a glide range ring. So this is turned on. By default, it's probably not turned on a brand new airplane unless I've done a check ride with you or a flight with you on your acceptance. But it can be turned on easily enough in the setup, avionics setup page for your maps. You'll see the ring looks a little jagged. This one was taken off of our test bench, so you won't see wind, for example, but it does have a wind calculation that'll constantly update based on information it receives through ADS-B or XM weather. That'll help change the shape of this ring. The higher you go, obviously, the bigger the ring. Some of the things that are nice about that is it also will jut in or have a cutout if there's a tower. So if you look at the right lower quadrant of the first picture on the left side, in that right lower quadrant, you'll see a tower. And that's why it juts in like a sharp edge. It's because it knows that tower's higher than the terrain. And if you were to glide there, you would hit the tower. So it's giving you that information. It'll also put up the capability of going on your glide. It points an arrow on the right screen and will direct you. Again, you have to turn this on. It's one of those functions that you actually select. Some people don't like the range ring, or some people don't want the nearest airport, but it will point out the airport and give you an arrow. So on this slide here, it's showing you which runway you're headed to and which airport you want to go to. And then you can set up your navigation to actually help get you there. It's not an automatic, but it will help guide you there at this point. So it's not an auto land, I guess is what I'm trying to get, or an auto glide. So on the home page, you'll see some of the changes here. If you have one of the options called taxiway routing, you'll see a taxi route option on the right-hand screen. So if you go to the home page and you click on utilities, then the utilities page shows up and you see taxi route. If you go into the setup page on that utilities page, then you're going to have your normal setup where you're looking at your avionics settings, your database settings, and so forth. You'll also note on the home page that there are the performance and waypoint information. All those things are now configurable online or on your screen before you get started. I'm going to go through a bunch of these software changes here in the next few slides. So the taxiway routing we just talked about, this is an option that you can purchase as part of the packages that we have available. In the taxiway routing, when you go in, and I've kind of got these out of order, I'll show you here. You go into the taxiway routing, you would pick your airport and you would enter the route. It will come up and give you a bunch of, based on your location even, it will come up and pick certain taxiways and runways that you can put in different information. When you do that, and I'll go back, it'll then populate your 3D taxi capability with a magenta arrow. So on your primary screen, you're going to get this kind of a view. On your secondary screen, or your MFD in the middle, you're going to get a bird's eye view. And you can see the current route here, and then the next leg here. So it's giving you a current path, just like if you were in the air. The other option you can purchase is CastLink checklists. So checklists are now standard, obviously, in our aircraft. And when you click on that checklist option on the home page, you can pull up all of the notices, normal procedures, emergency procedures separately, however you want to do your checklist. But if you had an emergency situation where a CAS message shows up on your PFD, you can go to the checklist and it automatically has a link page right to the emergency that you're currently having. So without this tool, you would have to fumble through the emergency procedures, just like if you were fumbling through your POH for the emergency procedures. But with this tool, it automatically links it to whatever CAS message is showing up and then takes you right to that checklist for your ability to move quicker in the case of an emergency. So another option, maybe for the 135 operators or for just for fun, is the cabin brief enablement. And I'm just going to play one of them. Actually, it'll try to play all three of them here, but here's. So that's one of the three I have on here. So isn't that sweet? So where you go to set this up, if you have it installed, is you would go into your audio and radio panel switch, which is on your touch screen GTC down below. You click on audio and radios and you scroll all the way to the bottom, past the radio or past the the music and all the other options. It's the very last one. And then on the right-hand side, you would have a briefer enablement, and then you would click on the ones that you want. You can stop and play. I think there's 22 of them available pre-recorded messages.
And Dan, that sound's not coming through clearly here, so we can't hear it, but I think we have a good image in our minds.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it was basically saying don't smoke and welcome aboard and prepare for landing. Those are the three options. So if you didn't get that video and you want to hear them, I'll make that available to you. Enhanced terrain. So the synthetic vision had a bunch of upgrades with the new software on the G3000. You can see before on the left and the new on the right. It's just a lot crisper, a lot more detailed, a lot more functionality for the visual of that. In addition, as we talked about, safe taxi. Safe taxi can be seen on the left screen, above, in front, and below in your airports are shown. If you go to the PFD settings button and you go into the view, you have auto, flight, or off. So for synthetic vision taxi, if you look at the right-hand side, we've got kind of a bird's eye view behind and after the aircraft. That is the in the auto mode. And that means when you're on the ground, it's going to give you that overhead view. If you turn that off, it's just going to give you a ground view, just as if you were looking straight ahead and taxiing. So like on this slide here, well, even this one is not showing it the way it would. It'd be more like the one on the right on this side. So the one on the right would be your normal ground taxi operation. If you set it to auto mode, it will have this bird's eye view behind, so you're watching yourself taxi in front of you. If you have it in the auto mode, you get this view for taxi, but once you get to the runway threshold, like on the right-hand picture, and you cross that threshold and line up on the runway, it will auto put you back into flight mode, which is that visual like you're used to seeing in 3D synthetic vision. So those are the different changes that you'll see on the new software. In addition, runway locator is very nice. So you see these blue chevrons, or these, I don't even know what color that is, what aviation color it is. I call it blue. But if you're coming on a 45-degree angle or a 90-degree angle to your approach, you're going to see these markers, and each marker has a number on it. It puts a chevron about every 2 miles. So a lot of times they'll say, contact us when you're 10 miles out or 15 miles out. Rather than doing the calculation on your screen, it's actually depicted there. You exactly know how many miles out from the runway you are. So I find that a very useful tool. And that is something you have to also select on or off in the system on the display screens. One of the other nice features I haven't really used a whole lot yet, but I find it interesting. So you can do takeoff and landing assistance. You can set up all kinds of criteria for yourself, your own limits, your own thresholds of speeds and where you want them for takeoff and landing. And that just puts them in here as a reminder. So again, in the main page, you'd go in and your flight planning page, and you can do all your visual references as long, you normally have your speeds show up on your screen, your VX, VY, and rotate speeds. You can also put in some speeds that you like for your approaches and so forth. And you can manually select them, change them the way you want them, all within the specs of the aircraft. So this is just a helpful tool for a lot of people. Again, I don't use it very much, but I find it quite interesting that we have that level of detail to aid in planning your flights and runway lengths. Another update was the GWX8000 option that you can use with your GWX75 radar has been enhanced and updated to include the lightning and hail protection features. So that will give you a lot more detail. In addition, it gives you the moving map settings with it, not just radar, where you'll actually be able to have that radar screen up and embedded traffic or land sites, landmarks, and so forth. I kind of like a clean radar personally, but you have that capability without having to move it onto your moving map screen. One of the things that has caused a little bit of confusion for people is Garmin Plane Syncs. We'll go over that a little bit here. Basically, Garmin Plane Sync is a software application that you can have on your PED or personal electronic device, your mobile phone, an iPad type device, or so forth. Garmin Plane Sync operates very similarly to a telephone. So on the box itself, you have 4 antennas. 2 are LTE antennas or cellular antennas, and then the others are Wi-Fi, or and it's also got a Bluetooth enablement. So this box, if you're used to FlightStream 510, contains all the technology the FlightStream 510 has. But in addition, it can remote access your PED from home with the LTE connection. That is something that FlightStream 510 couldn't do. The FlightStream 510 was only used in the cockpit to communicate with your device in the cockpit, uploading, downloading flight plans, weather, and so forth. And you could do that through Bluetooth or through Wi-Fi. It wasn't always reliable. But with Garmin's Plane Sync, in addition to the items you can communicate with your system in the aircraft, you can be at home and you can look up information about your airplane through mobile technology. So on an iPad screen like this, you would get information about your aircraft, what the temperature is of the oil, the outside temperature. If it's in a hangar or not, you'll know the differences. On that right-hand side screen, you can see the databases can be updated or not. You'd click on the Plane Sync, little blue arrows that look like a circle there on the right-hand top of the main screen. And that will automatically go out to your plane where there's mobile device. If it's got access to a cellular tower, it will wake up the system briefly, download the data, and then turn itself right off. It does have some limits based on battery life. It's not going to drain your battery dead, but it will go out and collect that following information. If you ask a flight line person to go fuel your aircraft, you check it an hour and a half later, you can see it hasn't been filled, you can make that call. So this is all before you get to your airplane. You can have all kinds of information listed here remotely, but that's only available on Plane Sync. You would not be able to do that with a flight. And Plane Sync only works on with a FlyGarmin account. Or in other words, if you had ForeFlight and you use ForeFlight to connect with your cockpit resources inside the cockpit, like with FlightStream 510, you could still do that with ForeFlight, but you'd have to be in the aircraft. Plane Sync, this capability of remote cellular, is only available using the Garmin Pilot app. Subscription for Plane Sync, with the M700, you get your first year free. After that, you would have a monthly subscription, depending on if you did worldwide, Wi-Fi only, or international. So $30 a month is the current Plane Sync subscription through Garmin, and we would help sign you up that first year for free on an M700. If you're international, you would also get that for free for the first year. After that, it's up to you which version you want to take and how you want to continue with that information. But that does give you that LTE capability of remote access. If you just do the Wi-Fi only and you have a hangar with a Wi-Fi connection, you can still connect to your airplane remotely that way. But currently, the LTE is the only way to do it. And then just briefly, I'll touch on some of the performance numbers we're seeing. The POH says max cruise is at 301 knots. Personally, I flew up for the AOPA Washington flyover event with the Fury, and I was getting 302 to 303 knots on the way up, indicated I wasn't using auto throttle. I was at a max setting. I was flying at cruise the way I fly, trying to burn less fuel. I was getting 301 to 303 knots. On the way home, I decided to use the auto throttle and set it at normal cruise, and I was getting 303 to 304 knots indicated on the TAS, excuse me. So we're exceeding the book in a lot of cases, and that was at flight level 260. I know a bunch of our customers that have already taken delivery of their M700s are seeing similar results. The climb rate is really what's most impressive. I've noticed your profile is about 3 degrees higher on the pitch up, it seems, than with the 600. So it really wants to go and climb. The other nice advantage is that your takeoff speeds are reduced from 85 knots to now 75 knots for takeoff or for liftoff. Here's some of the raw numbers that we show in the book. If you slow the aircraft down, for example, and match your maximum M600 speeds, you get just about the same range, and in some cases, better fuel, about the same fuel burn. It is a bigger engine. It's going to burn more fuel on average. So your costs of operation will go up. I would suggest you talk to your dealers. And if the dealers haven't talked to us already, I'm sure they all have. Each one has their own set of demonstration devices or information for you on the actual fuel burns, depending on your region. A lot of times it's different just in altitudes, terrain, and climates. Your takeoff distance has increased, your landing distance has decreased. Majority of that is due to the 5-bladed prop. In the M600 POH, everything was calculated based on a 4-bladed prop, and it was also based on not using beta reverse. So our performance numbers look a lot better. A lot of it is with the new engine and some of the design features, but the reality is most of that is due to some changes in the POH and how we measure the information. But there is significant gain otherwise. One of the other things I don't have a slide for here is the sound or the noise. Because of the exhaust design, it's a little bit different than the M600. It actually seems to push some of the sound away. We got about a 3 decibel difference inside the cockpit. Of a quieter cockpit is very notable. And the measurements outside the cockpit, meaning if the airplane's flying over a neighborhood or so forth, the calculation I have from our engineering is about a 30% reduction in noise over the ground. So your cruise range in this aircraft, like I said, is very similar to the M600. You can almost go anywhere with a 45-minute reserve, assuming no winds and one person. So this is a ferry flight type of scenario here. We have other scenarios we can create for you if you want specifics, or your dealers have the tools to do the same. And we welcome putting together flight scenarios for you and different kind of trips and scenarios based on your passengers and your luggage and so forth. Really quick, just so I can give our friends at Pratt Whitney a little time. We did come up with some new interior designs this year, 6 different schemes. Rule number 1 in marketing is you want to make everything as difficult as possible to pronounce. So that's what we did. These are all designed after the name Fury. The idea for these names is based on volcanoes or raw power, natural energy, and so forth. So Galeris is the if you've seen our demonstrator, that's the interior color scheme that we have inside our aircraft. Villarrica is a volcano in southern Chile that I happen to personally love to go fly fishing around. Thera, Kilauea in Hawaii, Laki, and Mauna Loa. A lot of those are the Hawaiian chain islands. So some of those probably sound familiar, but when you see them, it's a little difficult to pronounce. I apologize for that. But we wanted to stick with that earthly theme and raw power. So here's the colors, a little more detailed for you of what the combinations can be, including the carpets. We have an accent piece, which if I show you this next slide, you can see is this line accent on the headrest, the seats, and on the seat backs. What you're seeing is the distressed copper leather and the Galeras interior. This is the Via Rica. It's more of the gray tones. The Thera is very white. It's kind of a blue hue, a light blue hue, sky blue. It looks really elegant. It's very classic and clean looking. If you don't have kids and you don't have greasy mechanics, this is probably a good one too. It is really pretty to look at, but I think it gets dirty. The Kilauea, I really like this color scheme, the blacks, the grays, and the accent piece really strikes us. It really stands out. And then they are white. For those of you who are in the medical field, no, it's another classic look that we have. We have some ability to combine, change, and customize this a little bit through that EXP package, but each one can be personalized. Mauna Loa is very similar to the Galeras as well. And then I have some more slides if you needed to talk about subscriptions or so forth, but right now I'm going to unshare and give this back to our, if I can figure out how to unshare, give this back to our Pratt & Whitney friends to go ahead and share what their program is. I didn't know, do we have any questions, Mike? I didn't see any that came up.
We have not received any questions yet, but this is a perfect reminder for folks to type your questions into the Q&A portal. While Alexander's pulling his question up, I'll ask one question. You talked about the nose gear limit fitting. Will that be made available to aircraft in the aftermarket for prior variants of the PA-46?
Yeah, that's in discussions. I assume it will be. It's not currently today.
Okay, thank you. And Alexander, over to you.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. My name's Alexander Smith. I'm going to take you through the Pratt & Whitney Canada portion of the M700. So just to let you guys know, so I'm the Piper customer service focal here at Pratt & Whitney Canada. I've put my email and cell number there. I carry my cell with me more or less 24/7, so please don't call me at night. But if you do need me at night, I've got my cell with me. So if you guys ever need anything, whatever you need, you know, Pratt & Whitney is obviously a very large organization. So sometimes you don't always get the support that you deserve. So please reach out, send me an email, send me a text. I'm always happy and willing to discuss and help you guys get flying again. Okay. So we're going to go over a little bit, you know, high level in terms of Pratt & Whitney Canada. You know, we've got over 100,000 engines which we've produced. And they really range from sort of, you know, the very small PT6As, APUs, all the way up, regional aviation, helicopters, all the way up to our latest PW800, obviously our turbofan engine. So we do really cover the full range, you know, going from 500 all the way up to 20,000 pound SHP. In terms of the PT6, we have just over 53,000 engines produced. Just about half of those are currently in service, pretty much in every country in the world. You know, 500,000 hours of flying time. So obviously a lot of hours under our belt, a lot of knowledge, a lot of lessons learned that we obviously incorporate in all of our new products. Always interested to put the highest flying or highest time engine up there as well, 68,000 hours on a 65B. So that's pretty cool. Obviously for Piper, we're talking about, especially in terms of Pratt & Whitney Canada, in terms of powered aircraft, it's the 42 Alpha and now the 52. 42 Alpha was in the M500, M600, and now the Dash 52 is going to be obviously in the new M700. And then we're just going to have a little look at the differences between these two installations. I know that Dan previously discussed about that. We're just going to, from a high level perspective, I think, you know, Dan's already mentioned, range is pretty similar. It's obviously quicker. and obviously you've got a little bit more SHP as well, and you will notice the ITT is a little bit hotter as well. Just something to keep in mind. So this is about as detailed as I'm allowed to get in terms of, going into the internals of the engine. I had something a lot more detailed, but then I was told no. So I had to remove a bunch of stuff. But this, I think, is a pretty good overview. I've got the 42 Alpha at the top here, and underneath the 52, you can see from a PT6 side, it's PT6 is still a PT6, so it still operates, pretty similar. But there are obviously some notable differences. And we'll just go over the sort of the differences from a high level. But in terms of the vanes, very similar number, exactly the same number. You've got an extra CT blade. You've got some more PT1 vanes as well there. And on the 42 Alpha, you have a 2 flowing BOV, whereas on the 52 you have 1 with a flapper valve. So a few minor differences, but in general, these are just very, very small tweaks. But it does obviously give us a lot more power and everything like that. Before we go on, the other thing, obviously, which I wanted to just sort of mention is that the 52, we do have it in other applications as well. It's been in entry into service since about 2007. It has a good, I think it has about a sort of 500,000 hours or so in terms of flying hours. So we've got a lot of experience with this engine. So very excited to have it on the M700. And I hope you guys are going to really enjoy it as well. And obviously the other thing is that it does have a Woodward fuel control as well, just like the latest rendition of the 42 Alpha. So that's something which I know a lot of people are excited about, is to have a Woodward and not a Honeywell fuel control. In terms of service center training, so I know a lot of people, a lot of the service centers and dealers already know about this, but just as a reminder, we do offer some line and base maintenance course through our partner Flight Safety. They do a 5-day training course for the large, which is what the 52 would technically class as. Obviously, a lot of you probably already service the 52s today, so it might not be necessary, but otherwise, if you do need to do just a reminder, as it were, then obviously Flight Safety is who we would recommend to go on this course. And obviously, in terms of all the 52 publications, that's all now up to date on the MyPower portal, so you can go down there and purchase those. You've got the maintenance manual, the overhaul manual, etc. So that's going to be that's all up to date. That's something that you can go and look at. And obviously, as always, if you have questions on that, there are obviously some small differences. In general, it's pretty similar to the 42 Alpha, but there are some notable differences in there. If you do have any specific questions on them, then as always, you feel free to just give me a call up, and I'll see if I can help with any specifics on that. I'm not going to go too much over the best practices today, just because a lot of people who are sort of just getting into the M700, I think there's going to be a lot more people around about the 1st of November when we do the conference. I'm going to spend a lot of my presentation in November on best practices, really going to dive deep into it at that point. But I wanted to bring up just a couple really lessons learned from our other installations, which use the 52. And that's really just in terms of the oil checking. Obviously, when you manually check the oil, make sure you wait sort of 10 to 15 minutes after shutdown. Always try and be consistent, get into like a nice rhythm, and make sure you add your oil when the engine is cool. And I think Dan touched as well on terms of how to click it back into place and everything like that. So that I think should be reasonably well understood as well. The other thing that, we do see a few issues on obviously the 42 Alpha, but also the 52, is this engine washing. So obviously we are trying to ask people to do, the compressor wash. Everyone, I think, tries to do it as much as they can. And I spend a lot of time speaking to sort of owners and service centers, and they say, yes, I've been doing it, but unfortunately, they don't always drain the fluid out properly. And so unfortunately, any liquid that gets stuck, as you can see here, it ends up causing a little bit of corrosion. If you don't remove the liquid for a long period of time, then this corrosion gets worse and worse. And we do have some pictures at the bottom. I didn't want to scare people too much, so I used some nice photos. But I have seen photos of RGBs with holes in them and that sort of stuff. So it's definitely something to be aware of, and to make sure that when you do your compressor wash, that you do really focus on draining that liquid out, and following the manuals carefully on that. I know there's a couple of sort of I think solutions out in the field right now to be able to increase to make it easier to do these the draining of. I know there's a couple of things being developed out there, so look out, speak to the community and see what you can do to really help remove this liquid. I can't emphasize that enough. I've seen after sort of 300-400 hours, RGBs completely corroded. So really, really be careful about that. Especially it's a brand new aircraft, brand new engine. You want to look after it the best you can. And looking after things the best you can, I'm going to hand this part over to Corey Williams. So Corey is our ESP head of global sales and strategy. A lot of you know I did a little survey earlier in the year. Thank you so much for everyone who responded to that survey. I did give out a leather jacket. Mark, I didn't see Mark on the phone today, but Mark Barak was the one who was selected to receive that leather jacket. So hopefully he'll be at the conference in November to show it off. Basically the survey was really on ESP warranty, understanding the differences, understanding what we have to offer. The feedback we received is really that there wasn't really a lot of a true understanding from the community in terms of what we did have to offer. So we don't give, I wouldn't say we don't, there's a lot of things which are we have to pay for, but at least what Corey is going to speak about is something where we actually are offering something for free. 400 hours, I think 2 years of free ESP is something which is which every new owner 100% jump on. There's a lot of benefits which Corey's going to go into. Corey will also be with me in Austin, Texas on the 1st of November. So I will hand it over to Corey, and he will let you guys know about this new the ESP offering that everyone should sign up for when they take delivery of their new M700.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Hello, everyone. I'm Corey, as Alex mentioned, and Mike, and I'm based in North Carolina, and I talk ESP. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I appreciate. I'll second what Alex said about the survey. It was very insightful. So I appreciate everybody that responded to that. That was a really good turnout. It was pretty impressive, and it was good to see everyone's comments. We read through each one of them. So this slide kind of covers the overall level of program versus warranty, different levels of program. So we have gold and gold light, and then of course we've got a really great warranty as well. But the ESP program kind of covers everything from a maintenance perspective, overhaul, hot section, AOG, troubleshooting, those things kind of that fall outside of warranty, and your long-term maintenance you're planning for overhaul. So these are the different coverage levels. If you go to the next slide there, Alex. So this is an example of a rate sheet, which also has the coverage levels. The only difference between the gold and the gold light is the coverage of life limited components. So those life limited components, really for this aircraft and this PT6A, really gold light is going to be your best value. The first life limited part comes due at 15,000 cycles, so it's so far down the road. And it's a well adopted engine across multiple markets. So there's really no reason to be on. I shouldn't say there's no reason to be on gold, but if you're flying a lower cycle rate, then really gold light's going to be your better purchase. And then we've got first overhaul rate. So we have a lower rate up to first overhaul. And then after first overhaul, we step that rate up a little bit just due to additional expected wear and tear at your second run. But yeah, so up to the first overhaul, you can see your rate's 176.95, and that's going to cover you for everything. We also have a carbon offset program that's additional if only if selected. So that is not automatically in the program. You're not going to pay the $7.14. It's just only if you would like the carbon offset program. All right. The total kind of the value offering. I mean, we're giving 400 hours for free at the beginning of the program. So whenever, if you ever purchase the aircraft or whenever you purchase the aircraft, your first 400 hours are on us. 400 hours or 2 years. As I said, we've got the discounted hourly rate up to the first overhaul. And you can opt out of this program at any time. If you get to the end of the 400 hours and you say it's not for me, you can opt out of it. It's giving you that enhanced. It's even further than the warranty would give you. We've got with the program, you've got predictability of cost and risk protection, enhanced aircraft resale value. So this program is transferable, fully transferable from one owner to another. We have seen a major gain in the PT6A program in general across all PT6 segments. We've seen a major increase since probably 2016 when that first 400 hours was initially created, which is considered especially is what we call it at Pratt Whitney. And so it's very flexible. If the new owner didn't want it, you can roll it into another contract. If you had another contract, or if you had another Pratt powered aircraft, and there's no annual minimums. This is the biggest kind of bonus or separation from other similar type programs with different OEMs is that there is no annual minimum. And no upfront management fee. It's just you pay for every hour that you fly, and that's it. The next slide. So the process is fairly simple. You complete the ESP request form. So this is how we're going to create the contract or the quote, depending if you've got time on the aircraft, we'll have to do a quote. If we do a quote, same form, but it's just basically who we're going to be making the quote out to. And then if you're going for the contract, it's who we're going to be making the contract out to, who's going to do the reporting and that sort of thing. So it's a very simple process. You send the completed documents to especially PT6 or to myself, and it basically creates a contract for you to review. And once you've reviewed that contract, it's all done through the portal. You just sign, you just sign and upload to the portal, and then you begin reporting your monthly flying hours cycle. So you basically do your own self-reporting. So if you fly 15, 20 hours a month, you put that in there. It generates an invoice that you then pay. You also do the monthly engine condition trend monitoring, which I think Alex will get into here in a minute. But the engine condition trend monitoring is all covered. That camp subscription for trend monitoring is covered under the program as well. So that's kind of the short, narrow rundown. if anybody has anything, any questions for me, feel free to reach out. Make sure my contact information is somewhere within this presentation, and then I'll also be in Oshkosh. If anybody would like to stop by and speak there, we have plenty of knowledgeable people on the program that are there. So we'll be glad to assist in any questions for any of you that are there. But yeah, look forward to seeing everyone.
Thank you, Corey. And yeah, I think it's, the ESP program is definitely something that, as I mentioned before, everyone should at least sort of try the free period. And, Corey hates me saying this, but, ESP might not be 100% for everybody, but I think, from a long-term perspective, but definitely the free period, I think, is worth for everyone to try just to see if it's right for you. Some people don't like surprises. I pick my holiday gifts in February. I'm weird. I don't like surprises. So for me, it's something that I think would be of interest, but other people are just maybe not like that. So I think it's really, you just have to try it out. And if you like it, you do. And if you don't, then that's fine as well. I don't know, Corey, you didn't mention the value of the 400 hours, but do you remember the value of the 400 hours? I think it's
hourly
like
rate times 400. What is it? 176.
Here we go, doing live calculate. I
So
have a number in my mind.
Around 70,000.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a $70,000 sort of value, this free 400 hours. So again, definitely something worth considering.
For sure.
So in terms of trend monitoring, so this is something which I have mentioned before. It is important to be able to properly follow. I think you guys know your aircrafts better than anyone, but at least being able to sort of track what your aircraft's doing and what your engine's doing is going to sort of be able to catch problems before it's too late. Obviously, in terms of aircraft resale as well. What's actually going to be interesting and new for the M700 is that we're now through CAMP and through Garmin, we're now doing basically an automatic download. So you no longer have to upload everything to CAMP, which is the trend monitoring service that you use. It's now all automatically done. You just have to sign the CAF form, the CAF form, send it back to us, and then that's all automatically done. So it makes that whole sort of upload process a lot easier. Something that we got back from the community that I've seen a lot is really just in terms of having to upload the data. It takes time, it's long, it's complicated, and so I know there are other solutions out there. So we sort of rethought it and see how can we make trend monitoring easier. From our side as well, trend monitoring is so valuable because the amount of times somebody calls me up and said, this happened, I had an ITT exceedance, I had this, I had that. I was like, is it possible to see the data? And then every time they're like, no, I don't have any data. So then, we have to then, okay, well, at that point, we have to, replace all the blades, replace all the shrouds, replace all of this, and it becomes an incredibly costly repair. Where if we would have had the data, then at that point, it would have be, significantly less. So there's a lot of value added to trend monitoring, and especially with this new option as well of automatic downloads to CAMP, it really sort of, in our eyes, makes it feel like a game changer. It is included in ESP. Otherwise, it's about $1,700 a year. So for the first 2 years, or for the first 400 hours, you get it for free. And then after that, you decide whether or not you want to keep it. Oil analysis technology. So that's something else which is included in ESP. So it is basically it's a way that we're able to sort of see the health of your engine, bearings, gears, carbon seals, see if there's anything which doesn't seem right. We send you out packs, you send it back to us, and then you can see the results online. It's a growing technology, and it's really a way for sort of you to be able to, another way for you to be able to monitor your engine as well as the trend monitoring, just to make you feel more comfortable. And again, that's included in ESP. Otherwise, it's $550 a kit. We have an app, which I think we've sort of mentioned for a couple of years now, My PT6 app. It's pretty good. It just be able to tell you sort of all the latest in terms of your engine, if there's a new service bulletin which has been released, what have you. Any news on the engine, if you need to do any sort of required maintenance, all that sort of stuff, it's all included. So even though I know your service centers, etc., know all of this already, it's always good to know if you think that you'll be needed to come in earlier than your scheduled annual. At least you'll be able to follow that on the app. And then finally, just a note on See First. So See First, 24/7, 365 days a year. These guys will offer technical and commercial support all the time. So if you have an AOG, you have an issue, you have a question, their email is there. Otherwise, you can call them and there's always somebody there. So you guys have my phone numbers and email and contact information, but if I'm not available for some reason, then See First should always be your first point of call, just to be able to sort of best support and best to keep you guys flying. So that's all I had from my side. I'll take it back to Mike and open it up to the floor if anybody on the line has any specific questions.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. We have two questions that came into the Q&A portal. One Dan was able to answer offline, but there's one that was open. And this is a question for you, Alexander, or actually, sorry, for you, Corey. And the question is, does ESP cover any corrosion issues?
ESP does not cover environmental in general. However, there are situations that ESP does step in if it's something that is not necessarily gross corrosion or due to neglect, but something that a customer possibly couldn't avoid, or if it's something that happens very often. At times they do. So as a blanket, no, but there are situations where we do.
Thank you. The other question was with respect to the warranty. Why purchase the engine coverage when Piper has a spinner to tail warranty? So Dan, I know you typed an answer in, but I thought others might be interested in this answer. So maybe you guys can expand on this for just a moment. But Dan, your answer was the warranty is 7 years on the engine. And this is an addition and covers additional coverage outside of the warranty from Pratt Whitney. The Pratt Whitney warranty is sorry, I don't even understand the last part of this. We only offer PWC warranty when you see the 5-year UCP program. So maybe you guys can just expand upon that and get some clarity here.
Yeah, so what I meant by my answer was we have a ultimate care program that does all the scheduled inspections.
Okay.
So unscheduled inspections are not part of this. And maybe Corey, you can expand on the differences between standard warranty and what ESP does for the customer.
Yeah, so there are things in the warranty that aren't covered fully. There are items that if you did have a warranty event, there is some amount of exposure or risk, and there are items that are prorated, or if you had things outside, so if you operated the aircraft for say 1,000 hours in 5 years, then there are items that would be prorated that were replaced for hours used, basically. So ESP is fully, none of that would be, you would have already paid for that, basically. So that would be your major difference. Alex, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I suppose, when we were building the slide, Corey and myself, we really didn't want to combine ESP and the basic warranty because it really is two very, very different things. Right. And from a, commercial side, there are a lot of, when issues do come up, people say to me, customers and service centers say, yeah, but we have warranty. Yes, but warranty is it's really for when things go wrong with, for example, the parts from our side. So if there's a problem with a part, which is actually basic, what we call basic to the part itself, then yes, first run would cover it. But for example, if there's a service bulletin which is issued, you know, you do, for example, like an overtemp, something happens and you need to have a rental engine, well, you know, first run isn't really going to cover it, or it's not going to cover it. You're also, I'm not sure, Corey, if you mentioned this, but you're basically paying your way to your overhaul as well, which I know from a Piper standpoint, you know, that's a very, very long way away. You know, typically average hours around about 125 hours, 125, 150 hours. So obviously no one's really thinking about overhaul, but what I think does add value to the ESP program is when you go to sell the aircraft, the fact that you've been paying into that means that, you know, from a resale perspective, you are going to, and again, obviously depends on the dealer, but you are basically going to have a higher resale because you are going to be paying down that overhaul. So I'm not sure if that's answered the question or not. If it hasn't, please let us know and we'll try to sort of make it a little bit clearer.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question that came in is an HSI cheaper with trend monitoring?
Corey, are you?
Is an HSI less expensive with trend monitoring? So from a trend side, I mean, you can certainly see any degradation prior to it getting, you know, too bad. I mean, Alex, you could speak more to that probably from HSI side.
Yeah, for sure. So basically how I see it is that, you know, trend monitoring, you know, when you go to your service center for an HSI, will trend monitoring make it cheaper? Probably not, but you also are going to know if you're going to get a more expensive HSI. You can also use trend monitoring as a way to do, and again, we're talking, you know, many years down the line, but if you ever want to do, if you're ever a high flyer and you do sort of, you know, 250, 300 hours a year, and you do accumulate a lot of hours, then we can also sometimes offer what we call TBO extensions based on trend monitoring. And so that's something as well that we can look into. But just having your trend monitoring, I suppose it's really sort of a preventive measure for you to be able to see if there's something in your engine, which is, you know, your engine obviously talks to you. So if there's an issue with the engine, or if you're noticing ITT is starting to spike up a little bit, you know, you can go in earlier, see what's going on. There might be something wrong. You can correct it. And then, yes, in theory, by doing that trend monitoring, you've sort of maybe made your HSI cheaper down the line. But just from a trend monitoring versus HSI cost, there's no direct cost apart from the fact that it's more of a proactive rather than a reactive service.
Makes sense. Minimize the surprises.
Exactly.
Well, Dan, Alexander, Corey, thank you very much. And thank you to all of our attendees for participating today. This is very informative, and I'm excited one of these days to get to go for a flight in the M700. So see you all at AirVenture. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Bye.